in Salesforce and beyond. And after that, we will come to the quiz, the very first part. So we have split it into two parts. So guys, listen carefully. Then you might can win a prize in the end. So that's the first part. And before we come to how to build an automation and using the integration, this is where I will show the product, how it works, and I will focus a little bit on the most common pitfalls I'm aware of. And then I will speak about where to find all these documentation for integrations, but also for enabling you to build your own integrations. And then we're going to have the second part of the quiz time. And hopefully we can announce a winner. As Christine already said, we have some giveaways for you guys for our community. In the end, we will have a quick Q&A, depending on the questions, 5, maybe 10 minutes. Let's see how many questions we have. And otherwise, there is also different channels. I will refer to these in my presentation where you can always reach out to us and ask questions. In the end, Christina will do some promotion on the next event series, and then we will have the session closing. Yeah, so hopefully this won't last more than about 60 minutes. And yeah, let's get just right into that. So topic number one, what is a native integration? As you probably are aware, UiPath had a pretty broad spectrum in automating, and we've just split this here into 4 major pillars. And as you probably know, in RPA, there's a lot of stuff going on in automating user interfaces, meaning more or less emulating real business users and people and helping them with automating their daily tasks and repetitive tasks. And therefore, we have all kinds of techniques which help our robots to understand what is actually built for humans. You know, our user interface is actually built for humans, and it's not always so easy to enable robots to deal with that. Same thing, for instance, for document understanding. So it's really important to make all these things machine readable so our robots can process this. Of course, this is mainly about the automation. There is a lot more around that, like a process mining, automation hub, data services, and so on and so forth. We will not cover this in our presentation today, but the major part of the presentation will deal with these native integrations, where we've built in the past 30+ rich integrations. We built together with our technology partners, where we work very, very close together with them in order to provide the best user experience for you guys, but also to keep all the security standards, which are rather high, you know, in the environments where we're running our robots. And the third pillar is, of course, you guys. Our partner and community is really something extremely valuable for us. So you guys are fantastic, and you build like hundreds and integrations and thousands of components. And we have like a really big number of developers, students, and people using our product. And we are really proud of this community. That's why we're also doing this community swags we give away today in our quiz. Last but not least, as you guys probably know, we have a pretty open platform. So I will also speak a little bit about custom integrations, how you can deal with that. But probably you already know that we have like software development kits and things like that, which should increase the developer experience and should make your life easier. So for instance, that you also can put a button to launch a robot in your custom application. But more to that later. So this is more or less the overview. And by utilizing all these capabilities, this is really something where you can go far beyond the typical RPA capabilities. And that should really help to increase your automation and make your automation a lot more beneficial. So let's have a look. What actually is a native integration? As already mentioned, when you navigate on your user interface, you instruct a robot to identify controls on a user interface. And typically, these applications are integrated into a Salesforce backend, like for Salesforce. But this is where really the logic, the business logic is in there, is in the backend. But that's not really the integration we are talking about. The integration we are talking about is when, for instance, we can connect out of Salesforce by an app directly into our UiPath platform by using APIs. These APIs really open new opportunities for integrations, and this is what we leverage, of course, in order to integrate with all kinds of different systems. Could be Salesforce, Workday, and you will hear about a couple others as well in this presentation, but you could also integrate into your custom environment. And this works of course, also in the other direction, where you could, for instance, instruct a robot in order to reach out, for instance, to the Salesforce backend to create some records in lightning speed. So a native integration is something where the systems integrate into each other by using APIs, and there's nothing else in between the system. And this, of course, makes it very robust and stable when we connect those systems. One of the major components we use for our integration use cases is the orchestrator and also the robots, of course. And what we typically do is in our R&D departments, we have selected technology partners where we work very close together with them, where we work together on integration, and they give us feedback to keep all security standards and so on and so forth. And this is what we really provide out of the box, meaning that you guys can just benefit by the work we've done. You just plug into this integration, do some simple configurations, and get started with it. But, you know, with the digital transformation, like every company out there today is a software company. And that means there is also a lot of opportunities for our partners, but also customers to integrate directly into the UiPath platform. For instance, if you have like your custom application, which could be your homegrown web UI for doing your daily work, you can imagine you could have like a button in there when you click that, and from there, the orchestrator instructs a robot to do, for instance, an automated task. And this is something where you can really bring automation very close into your homegrown applications without the need, for instance, using one of these plugins as we have in Salesforce and so on and so forth. So this is the way you can integrate. And what we explicitly did for Salesforce is a two-way integration. As already mentioned, there is like two ways to integrate, and that's what we did for Salesforce. And the first thing is our Salesforce Connector. And the Salesforce Connector is hosted on our Salesforce App Exchange. So when you get in contact with us, you can ask for the Salesforce Connector, and then you would get like the link to install it directly in Salesforce. And then you can configure it and to reach out to our orchestrator, where you can hand over data from Salesforce directly to a robot, and the robot is using this data to do the process. The second way of integration is the UiPath Activity Pack, which is more or less something you load into your UiPath Studio, and you model the flow with these activities. And these activities is more or less something gives you a kickstart because they are talking directly to the API. So you don't really need to drill in all in the technical complexity of these APIs. For instance, Salesforce provides. So we have like an abstracted way to give you the best experience to leverage this functionality. And you can get this from our marketplace and run it inside your robot. So that's the two ways of integrations in what we've built for Salesforce. And you know, when we talk about RPA, we're talking about process automation. And typically this process, you know, they start, for instance, in sales department, but then there is something in finance and HR until it ends up in IT ops, for instance, meaning this process usually cover a big portion of the entire enterprise very often. And today we're talking about Salesforce, right? But we have all kind of integrations for all different departments. And why is it relevant? For instance, because if you have like, for instance, the use case that that you have in Salesforce, for instance, an opportunity, and you want, for instance, you want to trigger a sales order as soon opportunity closes and is won, for instance. So this is exactly a use case Tanya will be talking about, where you, for instance, run an automated process across different technologies using native integrations and also across different departments. And this is when process automation really gets beneficial, because you can do shortcuts and reduce the waiting times and idle times almost to zero. And that's super relevant. And you can basically think of any automated process you can do with all the integrations we do. You can also mix this with the native integrations and UI automation and so on and so forth. So any thinkable automated process is actually feasible with these kind of possibilities. And this leads me to the next chapter we have here, where Tanya will be speaking about the use cases and we'll talk about the values in these automation scenarios. Tanya, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Robert. Yes, so I will be speaking about 3 use cases that we would like to share with you. So the first one is the one that Robert just described: sales order processing, both across both across Salesforce and SAP, and other systems are possible as well. Then we have a multiple contract agreement processing workflow for a real estate company in Florida. And we do have a mortgage payment use case where there was a COVID-related huge increase in service requests that we were able to help with. So the first use case is what Robert briefly described. And that's a very typical use case across multiple systems. So in this case, it is automated to create a new sales order in SAP. So typically you have multiple systems involved in such processes. So you do all of the opportunity handling, all of the CRM data in Salesforce, but then you're at some point you want to hand over to your ERP system and handle the whole sales order and fulfillment process and the invoicing process in SAP. Typically, this is done either through a one-on-one integration or really through manual labor. And the process works as follows. So when an opportunity is closed and won in Salesforce and the status changes, then our UiPath Connector in Salesforce kicks off a robot in the orchestrator. So in the orchestrator, the robot for sales order creation is started. This robot invokes the SAP BAPI and gets all the information from the Salesforce opportunity line items and enters this data into the sales order in SAP. Finally, the sales opportunity information is updated. So also in Salesforce, there is a notification that the sales order for this specific opportunity has been created in SAP. Now, the real benefit of this is that you have almost like a simulation of a one-on-one integration, but with additional benefits. You're not only able to have the one-on-one integration with SAP and Salesforce, you also have the capability to trigger this event automatically, plus add other applications as well in your process. So at the same time, you can notify managers, you can update Excel spreadsheets with this robot, you can notify somebody over Slack. So it's not just a one-to-one integration. The capabilities are really much stronger. And the development time for you as an RPA developer is pretty short due to the already provided integrations with Salesforce and with SAP through the BAPI integration. The next use case we have is the real estate company with the lease closing process. So there is a real estate company in Florida, one of our customers, and they have multiple steps to do when they create a new lease. So this is a huge a business related a real estate company with restaurants and all kinds of other specialties. So here, this process used to be very manual as well, with a lot of paperwork involved. And now with UiPath, the process flow is as follows. When a new opportunity or a lease is negotiated, then already all of the handling with the tenant is done via our Smartsheet integration. So the Salesforce opportunity creation is also kicking off the connector, just like in the previous use case. And then all of the data collection will be done through Smartsheet, through our activity pack. And also the signature will be done through our DocuSign integration as well. So instead of having to meet, having to have wait times, having to have customers come in, all of this can be handled automatically. And then in the very end, the closed won status is set in Salesforce, and this opportunity is finally created. So instead of having a manual process with probably a lot of frustration on both sides, both on the real estate company with a lot of manual work, this has really increased the experience on both sides, both for the real estate company and for the customers. And there are now 300 plus project updates, and there are weeks of time saved with this robot. And finally, the third use case that I brought with me is actually a COVID-related use case. So in the UK, regulators announced a payment holiday for mortgages to help people or businesses who were impacted by COVID-19. And because of that payment holiday, there was actually a 30 times increase in customer requests. So that's a pretty drastic amount that the bank had to cover. And so with using UiPath, they were able to handle this very professionally. So the process here is as follows. The customer fills out an online form of the bank to ask for such a loan deferral and fills in all the information there. Then the unattended robot actually picks up this request in Salesforce. So this can either be done by our activity pack or also by the connector. So the connector would then also kick off the download of the documents and the updates in the loan management system. So the customer information is searched. It is verified whether this customer is really eligible for that deferral. And if the verification is successful, then the bot makes the necessary entries in the loan account. If there is a problem or an exception, then this will be handed over to a person who then handles the exception and makes the decision in this process. In this case of exception, this will be done through human in the loop. So there will be a hybrid process, both involving a person and our robot. And then in the end of this process, the bot updates the status in Salesforce and sends out a notification to the customer that his request was successful, and hopefully making that customer happy. So with this solution, the bank was really able to handle this 30 times increase from the beginning on. So they were able to respond, but also they are able to respond to future changes when there is an increase in requests due to maybe other factors. So with all of that, the summary for us is that our native integrations, specifically our Salesforce integrations, are really fast. So you don't have necessary wait times, either in person or on the phone. You can instantly launch the automation. It is very scalable across multiple platforms. So originally you would need to build one-to-one integrations. And with our UiPath integrations, you can actually leverage both the native integrations, but also mix them with UI automation. So that makes it very scalable, but also very flexible. And obviously you have less errors, because specifically the boring repetitive tasks tend to make us more tired and also less concentrated, and that will not happen with the robots. By using the API automation, it's even more stable to changes to the UI, and also less heavy on cloud systems when you run a lot of robots. In addition, we have a much lower cost, because we already provide the capabilities to launch these automations very quickly instead of building your own integrations. And it's very simple. We have one platform and one workflow for all of the automations. And with that, I would like to hand over back to Robert to start the quiz for you to win the prize.
This fantastic use cases, Tanya. Thanks for explaining. Yeah, guys, it's time for the quiz now. And launch this presentation. So guys, what I want you is please open your phones or browser and go to www.menti.com and insert the code on the page here. It's 41788041. So we'll wait a little bit until everybody or almost everybody made it in here. And as already mentioned, there's great prizes to win. And bear in mind, the faster you answer, the higher the points you'll get. And we will do the first questions now and the final questions in the end of this session. So we have almost 20 people now in here. So let's wait 2 more minutes. More and more people coming in. That's great. All these nice logos popping up here. Come on, guys, some more. I would like to see some more logos here. I'm not playing, so don't worry. All right. Okay, so we have about 30 in the game. So that's obviously not everyone, but I think we should be able to start now. Okay, oh, there's some more joining. So wait like 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Answer first to get more points, right? The first question, what is a native integration? Is a native integration using web UIs to connect to systems? Is it a way to learn Schuhplatteln real quick? That's what you see in the screen here. Or is it a way by leveraging APIs to connect two systems with each other? Ah, perfect. We have only one person who clicked wrong, but I think that was just a wrong click, I guess. Okay, let's go to the next question. Question number 2. All right. Native integrations will not, so bear in mind, will not reduce maintenance. Native integrations will not accelerate process execution, will not replace your automation entirely, and it will not make automation more resilient. So that's a tricky question, but most of you guys made it correct. Absolutely right. Native integrations reduce the reduce maintenance because APIs are built to stay. You don't need to update your robot so often. And because you're skipping the whole UI interaction, which is built just for humans, we speak directly to the API, we accelerate the process execution significantly. There's just a message sent, we get a response. It's typically 50 times faster than on the UI. And automation is also more resilient because there's a lot less technology involved when computers talk to each other. You know, what you see on the screen, typically a user interface is super complex technology, but we are skipping this completely. This is why native integrations are a lot more resilient. All right, so these were the very first questions, but hold on a second. Actually, we have a result in the immediate. So let's see who is in the lead. Oh, Ricardo is in the lead. Perfect. Okay, so Ricardo, let's, there's a whole bunch of people pretty close. All right, so we'll continue now with the presentation, and then we're gonna have the second part of the quiz in the end. So now we speak about the how, right? We had the what, we had the why, now we have the how, and how these automations work. Remember, we have these two ways integration, and the very first piece I would like to show you guys in my demo is the activity pack. So it's demo time. So, not sure if everyone is familiar with our studio, but the studio is our design time. This is where we build our automated processes. And if you want to make use of the activity pack, you can import the Salesforce activity pack by using the package manager. And therefore, you just click on manage packages, then you just search for Salesforce, and then you find, for instance, the officially supported Salesforce connector. Whenever something is officially supported, you will find our logo in there, and you will find also some description here. As you guys can see, I have already installed this up front. So yeah, I just can close this. If you haven't installed this, just click the install button and save. That's it. Once that's done, then you will find here in the activities window, you will find a section called integrations, and therefore you find the Salesforce integration. If you would import other integrations as well, they would land in here as well. So from there, you can more or less drag and drop these activities into your workflows. As you can see, we have like bulk activities, meaning we send the task to Salesforce, and then Salesforce is processing it, and we don't really wait for that until it's completed. That's about the bulk things. Then we are capable to deal with files. We can assign, download, upload files. And probably the most common use cases you will find with the typical CRUD use cases, so create, read, update, and delete use cases. And I will have a quick example to do that. And here is some other tasks you can do. For instance, you can run an SQL query directly. But one of the major tasks is here the application scope. Whenever you do something with the Salesforce activity pack, you need to make use of the application scope. And the very first thing you do is if you click on configure, this configuration window will pop up. So we need to tell the robot how to access Salesforce. Remember, this is something what we build where a robot will reach out to Salesforce. So we need to do a couple of things in order to get into Salesforce. First of all, I'm doing this in my live environment, but this also would work the same way in the test environment. And you could have also custom environments. So for live, the way you sign in is just you go to your Salesforce login and you use completely the same login username as you would use in Salesforce. If you don't have a Salesforce user account, you can create, for instance, a test account if you like at the Salesforce homepage, but you could also reach out to your Salesforce administrator to give you or create a user for you, and or ask him if he can provide a user for you. And the next thing is the password. So you just add username and password in here, and so far so good. That was quite easy. But when it's getting a little bit more complicated is, and most of the times you would probably need an administrator, but I had many customers who did this on their own. And this is why I'm showing this to you guys, because there were some people having issues with that to set it up. So we have the username and password, and now we need to create an application in Salesforce. And therefore, I always go to Setup, and you go to the App Manager. So the App Manager is something you find under Setup. You search for App, and you will find the App Manager. And as you can see, we have set up already a couple of these applications, and I'll just create a new connected app. So this is something where we instruct Salesforce to allow our robot to communicate with. So therefore, I create just a name, give it the name, then a contact. But that's the mandatory fields you need to fill in. The rest is optional. And one really important thing here is we are using OAuth to authenticate. And therefore, which is mandatory, is the callback URL. So you probably will have to speak to your admin. We have set here this callback URL, and I'm just picking this one, and you have to paste this in here. But you don't need to do anything else, but only grant full access. This is what I can do because it's my instance. If you have like a demo or a production environment, you probably speak to your Salesforce administrator. For simplicity reasons, I just grant my application full access. You know, you can scroll through that, and then I think you get an idea what you can allow or not allow from external access. So that's actually already it to configure. And when you click on save, and that's important, it typically takes a couple of minutes until this gets active. But nevertheless, we can continue, but still have the message here. It's not fully configured yet. So if you guys would try it out, then it would not work, right? Because it takes some minutes. But what you, hold on a second, I need to give it another name. I just seen that I've configured this already, so I'm just using another name now. Okay. So once that's configured, you see here that we got a consumer key. And if you recall, for instance, then you find consumer key, secret, and the token. These three things are missing. And that's what we find here. We find here the consumer key. That's what we paste in here. Then we just pick the consumer secret. You need to click on it in order to see and copy it. And just paste this in here. And the last thing we need is the security token. And that was a little bit, that's the most challenging for the most people because you cannot find it here somewhere. So what you need to do is you need to go to your user profile. You need to go to settings. And here you need to reset my security token, or if you have it already somewhere, then you just can use, of course, this one. Just bear in mind, but it's mentioned here as well. If you reset it, there might be other applications bound to your user might be broken after that. So when I click on reset token, Salesforce sends this to my inbox. So you can see here, I got the email from Salesforce. So I will use this security token. I copy this one and paste it into my security field here. So when I try that, I would be surprised if this is already done. No, so I will try later, probably in the end of the session, but that's everything you need to configure. The only problem is now has not been activated yet in the Salesforce backend. So you need to be a little bit patient, but I've configured this up front where I have the configuration. Of course, I need to paste the new security token because I just reset mine, and I enter my password here. So when I click on test, I can see you get this message, connection successful. This means you have inserted all the right information into your configuration in order to connect properly. Yeah, you guys should create variables for all these things. because the automation, when you click on the scope, you see I was using here all variables here and filled them with the values I was actually using here. So I need to update the security token as well. And in order to have it up to date here. But once that's done, once the configuration is done, you can more or less use any of these activities. I use the insert record and drag and drop it just to your flow. So let me make it smaller. So I'm using here insert record. So when I click on that, you can already see that we have, for instance, an abstracted UI, which makes it a lot easier to read the API, because technically, if you would look at this, this would be all XML or JSON, and that's really the abstracted way to represent this user interface. And you see, we provide the full catalog of the Salesforce API, what you can insert on the objects. And yeah, this is how you can configure that. And when you click on test, for instance, then you already can create, for instance, a contract in the backend. So let's just double check in Salesforce itself if that worked. So I just go here on apps, I search for contracts, enter. And you see that's just the contract I just pushed into Salesforce. So let's do this another time. I don't know, you can basically play around a little bit and test if Salesforce allows also the next millennium. All right, so it was successful. And let's refresh that. You see here we have the contract starts in year 3217. That's a little bit in the future, but you know what I'm saying is with the API, you can basically do anything you like there. Right? If you want to use it for testing purpose, feel free to do that. And it's very, very fast, which means that you also could use it to populate data in your Salesforce instance. All right, so that's how you can connect to your Salesforce instance. That's how you can push data in there that would work with delete, get, and so on and so forth. Of course, it's not each and every example is as simple as that. Sometimes you need a little bit to explore. Sometimes you need to speak a little bit to the Salesforce admin. Depends on the expertise level you have in RPA development and also in Salesforce itself. But I think that's definitely something which should give you a jump start compared by using really the API on an HTTP level, for instance. All right, so the second thing I would like to show, let's quickly go back to my slide. So this is Salesforce Connector, which is an app directly in Salesforce. And maybe before I start, I just give a very quick overview what it does. We have on the left side Salesforce, on the right side our UiPath platform, and we're going to configure our connector app, where you can configure queue templates or job templates, and you can connect these to the process builder. The process builder is a very essential piece in Salesforce because whenever an event is happening, for instance, an opportunity closes, with the process builder, you can trigger, for instance, to run a job or to queue an item, and this will be executed then by a robot in our orchestrator. So let's have a look how this looks like. So therefore, you would just go there, search in the apps for UiPath after it's properly installed. As already mentioned, if you're interested, reach out to us and we can provide you with the details and information how to install that. Unfortunately, this was a little bit too much for this session. But when you go to the app there, you have some documentation and guidance here. You should read it before you start. There is like one you need to whitelist or the remote connection for connecting to the orchestrator, for instance. But that's just one little setting that's not too heavy. And here is the description about the connector itself. But the first thing we got to do is let's authenticate, meaning we establish a connection to our UiPath orchestrator. And there is two ways you can use it for the on-premise one, but therefore bear in mind the on-premise orchestrator needs to have a public endpoint exposed. Otherwise, it wouldn't be reachable from Salesforce because Salesforce is running in the cloud and it needs to be able to reach out to the orchestrator. So for my example, I'm using the cloud configuration, and I'll just briefly show you how to configure this. I just call it Cloud Orchestrator. And first of all, let's just log in into the automation cloud. And I think then it will get a little bit more clear where I get the data from. So when I sign in into my automation cloud, hopefully it doesn't take too long now. That's the demo code now. Normally it's just like 2 seconds. Let me refresh. That's not very nice now. Hold on a second for my cloud. Maybe I picked the wrong one. Oh yeah, obviously I picked the wrong one, guys. So, all right, so this is my automation cloud platform, and I have 2 tenants here. And you see here, that's Robert.org. That's like the very first property. You can see that in the URL here, and that's my organization ID. So when I go to the configuration tab, I just paste in this here, right? So that's my account logical name. And then I got to use my tenant, and my tenant is my modern department. So when you sign in into the orchestrator, you will find that here as well. So let me switch to this. And this is the very first parameters you need. You basically find it in the URL, but also somewhere on the user interface there. And I need to provide now API access keys. And it's very much the same as the other way around with Salesforce. We need to provide access token in order to guarantee a secure communication. So therefore, I just go here to my tenant, modern department, go to the orchestrator, and I click here on this API access field. And here is the first thing I pick is my client ID. You just click on it, and then you just paste it in here. And then we're gonna use the user key. So we have this information in here now, and so we can close this. Let me just briefly connect to my orchestrator, because there is one more thing we need to configure, and this is the access to the folder. Meaning you can configure a connection that it points directly to a folder. Why does it make sense? Because typically you organize your processes in folders. So I will use here for my example, because I have here create the sub sales order in here. We'll use the folder name unattended. Unattended processes. All right, that should be it. So when I click on connect, the connection was successful. So we successfully established a connection to our orchestrator. And this allows me to do the next thing, which is configuring a template. So we've set up the connectivity. Now I would like to configure a template, for instance, create sales order. And when creating a, apologize. So we want to create the sales order. I click on next. And since I'm connected to the orchestrator already, I need to type the first 3 letters here, and then it gives me the available processes here. So I just click create sub sales order. And I don't need to configure this here. I could pick a user or configure some more stuff, but it's not really required here. And then I need to connect the process I selected with my Salesforce objects. And therefore, since I want to create a sales order, I might want to use account. And for instance, when I pick this, the account ID will be handed over as an input field to the process. So this is really where you configure in the connector for this specific process, the input parameters from Salesforce. So let's just click save. And unfortunately, I've configured this up front. I haven't preset this. So okay. Okay, so it has to have a unique name. And once that's configured, I have my template configured here for this cloud orchestrator. I've set up the connection and I have a template. And now I need to go to the process builder, because the process builder will then trigger this event. I go back to setup and I will use the process builder. There is an alternative for this flow, and that works also for flow. So it doesn't really matter if you use flow or the process builder. And I'm just using this here. And that's the process builder. And the way you implement it, you model this flow and you say, if an opportunity, for instance, is moved to close and won, then it should trigger, for instance, this event, which then will run my process and trigger the sales order process in the backend and will generate, for instance, or create a sales order or whatsoever in the SAP backend. But of course, you can use any other integration. You can trigger whatever event you like or whatever process you like once a certain element or object in Salesforce gets to a certain status. All right, guys. So this is how you configure the Salesforce connector, and which brings me to the next chapter. This is documentation, what types and where to find them. First of all, the activity packs, of course, are documented under UiPath Docs. Just search in Google UiPath Docs activity pack, or go to this session. We will attach this presentation as a PDF document to this session. So you will be able to download this in order to have a look at the links or just walk through the presentation we did. And you will find all the explanations here, what you can do with all these activities here. The Salesforce connector, we have documentation also in docs.uipath.com, but also on the App Exchange. There you find also videos and so on, and details about the pricing, for instance. And just bear in mind, please reach out to this email address, integrations@uipath.com, because then I will get these emails, or my team will get these emails directly in case you have questions or feedback or whatsoever. Just make use of this email address. You're very welcome to make use of this. Then we have the developer portal, where you would find details about how to build connectors, but also activity packs. We have SDKs for that. You can use in Visual Studio, for instance. But we have also, for instance, Postman, the Postman UiPath Rocks documentation, which helps you to build integrations into the orchestrator to run a robot, for instance. That's exactly the same use case as the Salesforce connector would do, but you could build it, for instance, your own custom software. And what we really try to do in this documentation is that we focus on the integration use cases. For instance, what you need to do to run a job, right? First, you need to get folders, you need to get release, and then you can post a job. Because in order to run a job, you need to gather information from previous calls. And that's all described in here. You can check out Postman UiPath Rocks. It's a public website, actually. And we really focus on simplicity. We try to keep it clear. We try to explain the functionality so you don't need to study endless pages of documentation. And it's really good accessible, but what is really pretty cool is here, when you click on this running Postman, and if you have your Postman client installed locally, you can download this documentation directly into Postman, and you have it as a Postman collection, meaning everything we've documented is actually real API calls you can fire against your endpoints. Of course, therefore, you need to set up these environments first to your, for instance, cloud orchestrator. But once this is configured, you can already run this, right? So this should give you really a jump start in integration, and it should help you what kind of fields you need to fill and what you can expect as a response. And this is something our customers really appreciate. This is really very helpful for them in order to get started. Yeah, so last but not least, there is some additional resources. We have all kind of content, video, marketing material, YouTube videos, use case demos, etc. Just click through the links if you find some time, but there's really some valuable links. And by this, I'm done with the documentation, and we come to the funny part, which is the quiz. So guys, please go back to your phones and go to mentimeter.com again. And yeah, let's continue with the quiz. So Ricardo is not too far away for the most of you guys. So nevertheless, I wish you all the best too, of course, Ricardo. All right, so let's get it started. So question number 3, we have 27 people. Before we had like 32. Let's wait a little bit. All right. Can we reach the 30? Countdown, 5, 4, yeah, let's 30 people. All right. Oh, 32. 2 more seconds. Okay, I start now. Question number 3. Answer fast to get more points, guys. What is true for activity packs? You can trigger UiPath robots with it. You can access Salesforce super fast, or you can delete the internet with it. What's it? 3 more seconds. Oh, that was a catchy question, right? So remember, guys, the example I did in the studio, I was using an activity pack imported to the UiPath Studio, and I created a contract super fast in Salesforce. And of course, deleting the internet, this is only my mom manages to do like on a weekly basis. But so that's why I bought her a tablet, and that doesn't happen too often anymore. All right, guys, so let's move on to the next question. Last question. Okay, let's get it started. UiPath Developer Portal supports you with building your own native integrations, cooking some Wiener Schnitzel, or becoming a full stack developer. So is it building a native integration, cooking Wiener Schnitzel, becoming a full stack developer? What is it? Oh, well, one person wants to cook Wiener Schnitzel. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Guys, we try really hard to give you a good experience in building your own integrations. So this is something really we would like to explore probably. And maybe if you have time, just visit us at our developer portal, and just you can search it in Google, UiPath Developer Portal. You should find it there, or just go to our presentation and you'll find the link for that. All right, I hope you guys are a little bit nervous now, because we come now to the final score. Let's see who has won. Oh, Laura, you won the prize. Congratulations. So I would like to you to reach out to Christina Vidu, please. Or Christina, can you reach out to Laura? Please exchange somehow details. You will get like a voucher for our gift store. And that's pretty much it for our presentation today. We have now Q&A. Let me just quickly walk through the congratulations, Laura, to the questions. Tanya, maybe you had the time to walk through the questions so far. Otherwise, I would just scroll through that.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I caught only lots of LinkedIn posts. So I think it would probably be the best. I think there was a question about sharing the code with the community.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually all I caught. I think it would be best to ask to reiterate the question again.
Sorry to interrupt you guys. There's one about security tokens.
Yes,
from
I just
Akash.
found it. That's a good question, Akash. security token is an optional field. Without it, also the integration also work? Actually, no. This is something which has been introduced recently, and this is meanwhile required in Salesforce. And at least I never managed to get it run without it. So consider it as mandatory. We will update the tool so it doesn't state it anymore as optional. For the OAuth authentication, it is required. Okay. Okay, Hiroshi posted a blog. Fantastic. Awesome. So the other question, if we can share the code. What code do you mean, Dania, do you know what code we're talking about?
I think we're talking about your example you showed.
Oh yeah, guys, just here is the email address. Reach out to me directly. I will pick up the phone if you send me an email here, or I will answer this question, and I can send over the XAML file so you guys can have a look at it. But I will have to remove all the security related content, of course, but yes, you can have that.
Oh, actually, I think the code meant the Mentimeter code, so you can.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just looked at the chat log now, and it was a Mentimeter code. I shared it, so no worries, Robert.
True. Yes.
Oh, we're so brainwashed and so focused on coding and technology that we.
No worries.
All right, guys. So if there is, or is there a minimum Salesforce version that works with UiPath activities? I think it's with 18.10, right? But I think the LTS versions all support the Salesforce activity pack. And whenever you have questions about this, you will also just have a look at the package. I think it's in the description of the package as well. What's the minimum required version? But I think it's 18.10. Okay. Okay. Is there a dashboard in Salesforce of the UiPath activities? Or is that expected to be the orchestrator? Oh, that's in the orchestrator. Is there a dashboard in Salesforce of the UiPath activities? I don't really get the question, but whenever you run something in the orchestrator, you get like a dashboard of executed processes. And in Salesforce itself, I'm not really know if there is dashboard for the amount of the executed activities, but that's a good question. I might ask some colleagues, they probably know more about this. So I don't really know the question. The answer for this question. Okay. All right, guys. So if there aren't any further questions, I would like to hand over to you, Christina. And so you do the final promotion for the next community event. So I will just click for you if that's okay for you.
Yes, if we finished off with a question, I see there are some still coming in chat.
Okay.
But
should we do some more?
I think there is only one left. I don't know if you addressed this one with using Salesforce Connector. Can we add data directly to orchestrated queue?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good question. You can run jobs, but you can also configure to add queue items, meaning what you can do is you can, whenever an action happens, you push it to a queue, and then like every day on a bulk processing or a batch process, for instance, a process can process all the data once a day, for instance. So that's also feasible. That's actually what you can do with queues. So yes, you can do that. That's the answer.
Okay, and with that, I think we can close our Q&A session. Yeah, you can leave more questions if you want in the chat, and we will try to get back to you in some way. Thank you all for being here today. I'm very glad you enjoyed it. I see we received congratulations. Yes, the PowerPoint will be available. Questions are still coming in. So after this meeting, you will receive an email with the video recording. You can access the recording and also with the deck from this session. So no worries, you will have all the material there, and also encourage you to forward it to anyone who might be interested. Thank you for the congratulations and all the compliments you received. I think most are directly that Tanya and Robert probably because they did such a great job and they were here today together with Lynette with us. I already left my email address here for the voucher code. Just email me to redeem the voucher code, please, Laura. And now I'm going to share with you, actually, Robert has shared with you like a community slide and what we have coming as the next meetups. And I will share with you in chat and invite you to our next global meetup, which has to do with robotic automations for SAP. Automations for SAP success factors, and that will happen on July 1st. So you're very welcome. Just go to community@uipath.com and join that meetup, please. And of course, we encourage you to stay close with us here anytime and invite your more members to join. Thank you all. And I think this is pretty much it. I think we can close the session. We will leave you 2 more minutes. I see there was another question here, but
Christina, I think people reach out to the email address integrations@uipath.com, and then we can spend more time on answering the questions.
The address. Yeah. So this is where you can place further questions regarding this session subject. Okay. So without further ado, this was it. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Robert, Jeanette, and Tanya for being with us.
Thank you, Christina.
Great presentation. And bye-bye, everyone. See you at the next global meetup, or perhaps even sooner at local ones. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.